Philip, before we jump in, I've been losing sleep over something that I would love for you to kind of clear up for me, okay? It's a vicious rumour about you. I don't know if it's true.
It might be true.
Will we roll with it and see what happens?
Yeah, go for it.
Is it true that you were headhunted on the street to work for Abercrombie?
Partially true. It was a Dublin horse show, so technically not the street. But I was actually a girl from Banbridge called Winnie. Can't remember her second name, but it was in a long time ago, just standing around Dublin Horse Show because my cousins would have done a bit of eventing, and someone came up to me and was just like, "Oh, do you want to work for Abercrombie?" And I was like, "Is this like?" Because when you know in the shop in Belfast, you would have had people coming up to you and be like, "Oh, would you like to be a model?" And you're like, "No, I don't want full clothes, thank you very much." And then she did that, and I was like, "No, thank you." And then she was like, "No, serious, like this is," and I was like, "What are you talking about? I am in university in Belfast." And then she was like, "Look, this is the crack. Come do some photos. Come do this. Come do that." And she's like, "This won't be working in the shop." And I was like, "All right, I'll listen." And then she was like, "Sure, look, go away, think about it, and then I'll give you a call in a while." And then it just sort of spiraled. Class.
And I mean, at that age, even the prospect of getting like free Abercrombie or Hollister merch, you're like, "Oh, mate, it's like worth its weight in gold."
Well, at that time, it was 2011, 2012. Like, that was the boom of that, you know, coming to Europe, and everyone was going mad for it. Like, we used to joke in the shop that, like, oh, you could literally like slap a customer in the face and tell her, like, go to the till and pay double for that, and she would say, "Yes, okay, no problem, can I have it in 3 more sizes?" Like, it was horrific marketing, which is why the company hasn't done very well over time, but people were just putting up with it back then, and they just loved the clothes, and everyone was going mad for whatever way they had hooked the market for that period of time. It was just huge.
Have you regretted turning it down?
Turning it down? Oh no, you misunderstand me. I took it. And
you took
it? You ran with it?
And I stood in front of that shop for however many months and absolutely milked the life out of it.
Well done,
had a great time, met so many amazing people. I used to get the bus down from the Europa every single Friday or Saturday morning, work all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Do you know the Muppet that stands at the front and gets their photograph with not very much on? That was me. There was 2 of us in Ireland who did it, myself and another guy, David Neal, which is kind of links kind of nicely into why I started rowing and how I started rowing.
Okay.
He was a rower for UCD at the time, and he was kind of on the fringe of the Irish squad but trying to push on, and me and him, well, himself and I would have ended up in the gym together a lot, and he would always have been like, "You're quite fit, you're quite strong, like you should, you know, maybe an endurance sports for you." And I was like, nah, I'm just in trying to get through the university at the moment. So we went down every Friday, come back up every Sunday, had to do the whole like making sure you were dieted and all this. Like, I was dieting and exercising back then. I wasn't eating and training, which is what I'm doing now, but it was a completely different lifestyle. And there was just, you used to get a lot for a 19-year-old in first year of uni. I used to get exceptionally well paid. Like exceptionally well paid. You used to get bonuses for having your top off of every shift, but a shift was only 4 hours, so in a day you could do 2 shifts, so you get €150 I think, and then €150, so you got €300 bonus per day plus your hourly rate for whatever hour, like you would be clocked in for 10 hours at, you know, down south. I think the minimum wage was 11, and we were getting a good bit more than that. So when you were making €400+ a day as a 19-year-old university student, so I would go down, work the whole weekend, pick up €1,000 and come back up. So I was like, and going out in Dublin at the weekend, you know, staying up, going for dinner with people who were all a lot older than me as well. So like, you were getting great experiences, and get to go to the Trinity Ball and getting to go to things that like people in, not the people in Belfast don't get those experiences, but unless you knew somebody down there, you wouldn't travel to Dublin for a night out, or it's a bit of a trek. So it just opened this possibility of stepping outside what I would have normally done. And then all of a sudden the company was like, right, we need to start making money, we need to cut all these extras.
Getting these £1,000 a weekend.
Because for the opening of the store, I know this is not what we're here to talk about, but for the opening of the store, there was an entire week of us just standing outside the front waving.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
I have a hilarious photo on my phone I'll show you later of this like this like typical Irish lady going doing the shopping, do you know, one of the wee carts, the wee checkered carts, and she had like, you know, the headscarf on. She's just like dandering down Dame Street, where it is just outside the Trinity, and she's just like giving us the side eye. She's walking past, and the cameraman just clicks it, and there's like 15 lads in these red coats, just like shredded, like, you know, in the peak of their, like, they've all like dyed it down and cut the water and the salt and all.
Oh,
like,
brutal.
they're all standing there like giving waves and smiles, and then she's just like, what? It made the front of the paper, I'm pretty sure, down in Dublin, because there was a huge big coverage of this, because
Yeah.
it was the first one in Ireland, and it was their flagship store in Europe and all this. It's just chaos, and they were down for the week, so they would have got huge money, and they were being put up in the Westbury Hotel on Grafton Street, and every night was a party. You know, we'd be standing there, some guy from George Street Bar or Right Venue was huge at that time, and we'd come up to you and give a wee card and be like, here, there'll be a table with bottles and whatever for you tonight, just call this number, we'll come and get you.
I love that.
What year was this?
It sounds like the 60s. It sounds absolutely mad.
2012, 2013.
Oh, wow.
My first year in university, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well,
and
you
I
were
still
out-
have some great friends from, you know, I still
Yeah.
have 2 or 3 great friends that if I'm driving past Dublin and I can and the traffic allows, because obviously getting out in and out
Yeah,
of Dublin's
it's
hectic
mad,
sometimes, but I'll still call in and we have the best of crack.
But you're outstanding anyway because of your height, but also a very handsome young man.
100%.
But also,
Easily the second best looking guest I've ever had on the show. Easily.
oh, there you
I
go.
The
love that
first
you're
was Mary.
I was just saying, you know, you've got so many women admirers, but I'm far too old for you. But if I was 70 years younger.
If you were 2 years younger.
But I know that you received an award from the Belfast Telegraph Sports Awards one evening, and a friend of ours was sitting at the table and said, I'm taking him home. I'm definitely taking him home.
Man, well, what a place to start. Hello, welcome to Sport Inspires, a podcast in collaboration with the Mary Peters Trust, where we sit down with some really incredible athletes from this part of the world. It's done in collaboration with the Coca-Cola Thank You Fund, and we're joined today with the incredible Philip Doyle. Philip Doyle is an Olympic rower. He's a doctor, and as we've heard as well, he's had a wild career in, I'm going to call it like a hybrid between modelling and retail. It's such a strange job. But I appreciate the
I don't
story.
know what title to give it either, to be honest.
What did your mum think about that? Did she love it?
Exceptionally, like my mother would be very reserved, so skeptical at the beginning, but I have the Polaroid shots of her and I at the front of the stores. She got her wee trip down to Dublin every now and then, did all her shops up and down Grafton Street, came, got a photograph with me, and I actually have one of myself and my granny as well. So I have loads, and my granny would be very conservative. So she was definitely, she was forced. I was, you know, you had the arm round the holder in place rather than.
But you're very close to your mum, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. We've
I was
grown up
reading
together.
about you during the pandemic when you were on the rowing machine and she had to stand behind you to keep tapping your shoulder. That's dedication as a mum, isn't it?
Well, there's some, she's not there by choice most times, but there's sometimes you have to do, I'm sure people have done a test of some kind. Ours are endurance based, so you could have to be pretty mentally clued in for 6 to 20 minutes. One of them, there was one specific one, it was a 30-minute test all out on the rowing machine, as hard as you can go for 30 minutes. And you always want to stop at about minute 5 and then you want to stop again at 10 and 15. So I said to her, I was like, look, give it 20 minutes and then come in and stand behind me. I was like, don't say anything, just stand behind me. And if I look like I'm slowing down, just tell me, wise up. So she did. She just come in, stood behind me, and that's all you need to know, is that there's someone there watching, and that just clicks you back in, because it's hard. Usually there's 6 of us or 10 of us in a row all doing it together down in the rowing centre in Cork. So whenever I was having to do them all at home in the garage, sometimes you could do the first one by yourself, you maybe not do this, and then the third one you just need to know that someone is watching.
Yeah.
So if you stop, you're letting somebody down. Like, you know, in the long term you're going to let somebody down if you stop, but you need to know right there and then there's a reason not to put the handle down and get up.
How does your mum feel about 8,000 calories a day now that you're at peak fitness?
She, at the very beginning, used to shout at me, "You can't eat all that sugar. That's not good for your pancreas. There's no way your body can take all that." And then I was like, so I did a little experiment with her when I was working at home, and I was like, right, okay, then I'll eat healthy. So I ate healthy for 3 days and lost about 4 kilos.
Jeez Louise.
And then I came in one day and I was just gaunt looking. And I was loving it because I was like, oh, here I'm in great nick. This is amazing. I was like, I don't really care about my ribs or my bone reabsorption here. Like, I'm going to get stress fractures. But I was like, this is, I'm proving a point. So I came into the living room one night and she just looked at me. She, go to the freezer, get the ice cream.
You fond of ice cream, aren't you?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, mate, what's your flavour?
Oh,
Hit me.
Well, it depends on where you're going.
Oh, tell me.
Oh,
it's
right,
Pooh
okay,
Bear.
yeah.
You're a Drumore man, so
I am a Drumore man, yeah.
So if you're an ice cream connoisseur, right? If you're a guy who enjoys a certain particular, say it's coffee, or someone who loves coffee doesn't order a cappuccino. They order an espresso or an americano, so you can taste the coffee, or a filter. If someone says to me, "Oh, I love coffee, I love a latte," you're like, "You don't love coffee. You don't love coffee. You love sweet
I love
milk."
salted caramel from Costa.
Yeah, you love sweet, milky things. You could have a hot chocolate. Do you know what I mean? So I love vanilla or just homemade.
So you are a purist.
Yeah, or
Wow.
as the Italians would call it, like the fior latte, the cream and milk. So it's just milk flavoured ice cream. So that's what I get. Timony's, Newry, up there.
Very good.
Graham's.
Yeah.
Rathfriland Graham's is a
that's
little
it.
better than Drumore.
That's what they say.
I have to say.
That is what they say.
I think it's the height, it's the elevation.
I was there one day and the lady stopped me in the car and she waved me down. She said, "You've got to have an ice cream while you're in Rathfriland."
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
went and ran. And I had a friend from Australia and she brought us 2 Pokes and said, "This woman from Australia couldn't
Unbelievable.
believe it."
Yeah.
But it is lovely
no,
ice
it's-
cream.
But the vanilla purists, the debate is always between Timony's, Graham's, or Brennan's.
Yeah, Brennan's is good.
Brennan's is so good, mate.
Brennan's is good. But the only thing is, it's a wee shop on the Lisburn Road. I don't know where else to get them.
Brennan's?
Yeah.
The only place we get Brennan's is like there's a wee petrol station on the way to Newcastle.
You get it there.
Yeah.
Or am I thinking of Barnum's?
You maybe. Mate, so there's a
See,
wee
Brennan's
there's
to
a
me is
petrol
bread.
station on the way to Newcastle. Like I
On
said
the
earlier, it's a
left-hand
Spar,
side,
it's a
if you're
garage on
going
the
through
left hand side.
Ballinedge.
For me, that's the best vanilla ice cream in the
What are
world.
you going to Newcastle through Ballinedge for? You're from Drumore.
To go to Brennan's? Sometimes I go to Newcastle for the sole purpose
Sure,
of
if
getting
you
to
go through
Brennan's.
Rathfriland, you can get grapes.
Yeah, but I love Brennan's.
This is the best way to get a sponsorship that I've ever heard.
Well, there was a girl who rode in Queens with us whose family were the Morelli family.
Okay.
So I used to send her. I used to buy the gallon tubs, the big ones from. They used to have a shop in the Lisburn Road, and I used to buy the gallon tubs, and I used to send her photos and be like, "Sponsor me now." And she'd be like, "I'll send this to my dad," and I was like, "No, you better not be joking. Actually, that better be going to your." But Morelli's is up there as well.
Yeah.
But I would have to go Honeycomb for Morelli's then. Do you know?
I love honeycomb.
And then there's 2 lads from America who make a great assortment of ice creams, but they're all flavors and it's gimmicky. So, but if you're just getting ice cream, you have to get.
I love it, mate. I
straight
feel like
up.
we should just end the podcast now. We've got what we came here to get. So you didn't start off rowing. We were talking about footballers, I think, before recording. You're not like Messi's son, where you're starting rowing at 6 years old and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I actually played Gaelic football and soccer in school I went to St Mary's Primary School in Banbridge and played soccer and Gaelic football all the way through, and ended up actually playing in some random under-12 county team in Clonus Park at like the halftime shows and stuff like that. So we did like Clonus Park and a few other little small like under-12 versus under-12, 10 minutes swap, and then was like went to Banbridge Council like summer week taster, because the mother had to get me out of the house. I was never diagnosed with ADHD, and I don't think I have it because I can focus and concentrate, but I just had a lot of energy. So she was like, out the door, on you go. And ended up in this summer scheme playing hockey, and there was a coach there for the Banbridge Hockey Club, and he was like, "You should come down on a Saturday." And I was like, "Alright, I'll come down to Saturday." So I went down to Saturday, and then after a few weeks he was like, "You should go to this like scheme or a couple of week sessions that was set up by Banbridge Academy, which is my local secondary school. So obviously I had the choice of going to my local secondary school, which was a mixed religion secondary school, Banbridge Academy, or going off to one of the Catholic grammar schools in Newry. And as you can tell, I went to St Mary's Primary School and played Gaelic football, so I was from that side of the community. And I was like, it's 20 minutes in the bus and standing around Newry waiting on a bus home, and if I'm doing something after school, I'll not be home to 7 o'clock every day, whereas I can walk to school if I go to Banbridge Academy. So I was kind of like, what, in between those two choices. And I had this couple of week sessions, and at the end of it, the Mark Cordner, who's the coach in the academy at the time, came up to me and was just like, here, you can do this sport all right. He's like, if you come, you'll be on my team, next year. And he picked out me, a few other ones from my school actually, and a few other ones from a few schools around the who also were at the club training on the Saturday. And then we were that was just me set. So I was like, right, I'm going to go and play hockey in Banbridge Academy. So that was the end of Gaelic football and soccer, swapped over to hockey, and then played hockey through all the years and had some great success with Banbridge Academy. Ulster titles. We won the Irish Schools down in Wesley College. We went to the European Schools Championships and got to the semi-final twice. Got put out by a Portuguese team in a very controversial game. Just 2-1, and we got a penalty corner that was disallowed in the last few minutes. But we're not saying that. But it was great fun. I made some unbelievable friends from that, and then went to Holland and played for the Irish under-16s. Played for the Ulster teams up until under-18s, and then I wanted to be a vet, and then I realised that animals don't talk back, so there's no crack out of them. So then my uncle was involved in Queen's, and I was like, here, could I shadow you for a day or two? And he was a cardiologist, and I was like, can I shadow you for a day or two just to see what this is like compared to this animal nonsense? And he was like, yeah, come on ahead. So I was like, here, this is all right. And I was like, right, I'll do this.
Even though you knew it was going to be 7 years of training?
Well,
studying?
Technically. Well, sure, a life without constant improvement isn't much life, is it?
Well, that's
Mary, you should know that.
But it's a long haul.
It's a long haul, but I don't know if I wasn't constantly trying to do something or improve or something, I don't know if I would settle.
What happens when you stop? Have you ever had a moment in your life where you've been forced to stop?
I quit rowing a few times.
Did you?
And what happens to you whenever?
I was doing something else, you see.
Okay, so you're always having a thing on the go.
Well, you sort of have to. You're young. You've loads of opportunities in the world, and
lots of people don't. As in, lots of people don't continually push towards something.
I think it's just whether you're content at it. Take for example, last week I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a head cold. And I worked, I was like, right, I'm sick, so I'll go to work. So I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday evening, tried to get back in the rowing machine. Heart rate was through the roof, wrecked. I was like, right, not happening today. It's like, right, I'll go to bed early. Went to bed early, woke up on Thursday morning. Coach texted me, how are you? And I was like, I'll be down in 10 minutes. Down, trained the morning, felt horrific. I was like, right, I'll see how it is this afternoon. Trained in the afternoon. I was like, right, I feel terrible. I'm going to take tomorrow off and then see how we go on Saturday. So I took Friday off, went mental, came down, trained on Saturday, still wasn't right. I was like, right, I still need more time off. This is against if somebody came to me for advice,
sure,
this wouldn't be the advice I give, Yeah. So then Sunday, I was like, right, I'll just do one session on Sunday and then I'll relax the rest of Sunday evening. So relax the rest of Sunday evening. And then came to Monday. And then we had VO2 max testing and all this stuff this week. So Monday was only a light session in the morning. See, by Monday afternoon, because I hadn't done much the last week, I was just itching. And I was ringing round, and I was like, oh, here, I need to do this. I'll get my trailer's license. I'll get this. I'll get that. I rang my coach and I was like, look here, we need to sort this out. And he was like, you need to train. There's something wrong with you. And I was like, all right, okay, I'll talk to you in the morning.
Have you brothers and sisters?
No, it's just me.
Oh, you see, you've nobody to challenge.
Yeah,
I
nobody
had a
put
brother
me in
that
check.
Kept me going. But you're very interesting that you are so into it in such a big way. And how did you get into the boat in the first time?
So a mixture of things. I applied to medicine then and had interview. You know, it's an interview process, and went to a few interviews. And the main one that I really wanted to go to Bristol. Loved the city, loved the look of it, by the harbour, the hills, the old English looking. And I was like, really good medical school, and I was like, oh, I'd really love to go. And then they put me on their waiting list, and you can request why. So I was like, oh, could I ask, like, what could I have done better? And they were like, your interview, everything was fine, but your personal statement's just all hockey. Like, it's just all sport. You're like, yeah, okay, you talk about how the sport helps and how it this and how it that, but they're like, it's just all. They're like, we were genuinely wondering how you would be able to do this course when you do so, because at that time I was playing Ulster, Banbridge Hockey Club first 11, Banbridge School first 11, and then doing, you know, my own like strength training around that. So you're training 15, 16, 17 times a week. So they were just like, how are you gonna do this? Like, there was sometimes you would finish in school, you would do a session for the school. A few of the lads would go get food at somebody's house and then come back in for the club training that evening. So you're doing 2 sessions in the evening, and I would have been doing weights or going running in the morning as well. So you're training 3 times a day. And they were just like, how are you gonna maintain this? And ironically now, I'm kind of like the poster boy for the guy who did sport and was successful at university. So I find that ironic. I would love to go back to those people in Bristol and be like, well, excuse me. So I had to take a year out because I had all my exams, I had everything.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the personal statement. The CV wasn't up to scratch. So that year I quit all sport. I was like, look,
Wow.
Sport is such a negative impact. Played a bit of hockey here, a bit of hockey there, but I went away to work in a missionary hospital in Fontem in Cameroon for 3 months, from September through to December in 2011. That was the end of 2011, because I was like, I have no, you know, I didn't have really family contacts. Like, my uncle, who was a cardiologist, was like, you can come with me for the weekend if you want, but, you know, I can't give you special treatment and bring you in for a week or 2 weeks to get the experience you need. He's like, there's a whole system set up for that, and you have to go through. And he's like, I can't just take you to the side. That's so unfair. So I was like, that's fair enough. And then I was just like, how am I going to get this? And my mum had a friend who worked with this group that ran this hospital. They'd one there, one in the Philippines, and one in Italy or something. And they were like, look, go out there and work. So I went out and just worked as like a healthcare assistant there for, you know, changing beds, giving out medication, you know, simple things. And just did that, and that boosted the CV so much. And then I worked in an EMI care home in Banbridge for the rest of the year, and then worked as a receptionist in obstetrics and gynecology clinic in Newry. And then I also worked on the weekends in a hotel in Portadown, because my friend's family owned. And that was
what did you do in your spare time?
Don't know, to be honest. But I just was like, I just need to fill this year with a CV.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just need to do stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is my year to just do stuff and just forget about sport.
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's like you just filled all of the sport energy with work.
Pretty much.
Like there's guys like you outside this window here who are putting that level of intensity into their business.
Yeah.
So you were just always going to like really, really thrive in something. You just
didn't know
what it was going to be. Why did like the medical dream take priority over the sport dream? Was it just purely like there's a career path here, or
pretty much? Yeah. Do you know, I was never doing a sport that you could do you know, you can play hockey professionally, but you know the longevity of it's not huge. And my dream wasn't to be a professional hockey player. My dream was my dream was to go play hockey for Ireland, the senior team. That was a huge dream of mine when I was younger. But then I think there was 1 year I didn't make the team. I think when I was in upper sixth, and I really thought I would have. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Maybe this isn't such a reliable dream. I was like, I need to put some work into the schoolwork as well. And I never was that studious. But I always did well on exams, and I think that copped me on a bit to be like, here, you're not doing very much and you're doing quite well, so if you do a bit more, maybe you'll do a bit better. And that's, you know, you make a career in so many different ways. and I wasn't the sort of person who was going to run his own business, because I wasn't that detail oriented at that time. So I was like, a trade isn't on the cards here. I was like, so this is kind of probably where I'll end up, so I'll just put everything into it. And then I got the place and got all my offers then the next time round. All 4 offers came through. And I was like, oh God, if only I'd known that the first time. So then I ended up going into uni a year late, and I was just enjoying life and doing the Dublin thing and having a great time, meeting new people. But then I was kind of going out and partying a bit, and I wasn't like a massive partier, but just burning the candle at both ends, up and down to Dublin, nights out there, nights out here, nights out. And then the mother kind of was like, here, you need to catch yourself on here. You're doing this all wrong. You're going down a path of just being have you ever heard the term sesh moth?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's not
Mary
really
calls me that all the time.
I was like, that's not really me, but I enjoyed that social thing, and I enjoyed the nights out and stuff like that. And she was just like, look, you need to channel your energy somewhere else.
But it was good for you as a student to go through that.
Yeah, and look, I did freshers the right way. I did it the hard way, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But I didn't do it ever again after that first year. It was like, I couldn't sustain it. But the thing was then that I had that friend in Dublin who was sort of nudging at me. You'd be pretty good at rowing, you should give it a go. And then I had my mother saying, you need to do something to focus this energy. So I just called up sent an email through to the head coach at Queen's, Mick Desmond, and I was like, here, is there any chance? I don't want to join in with the beginners. I was like, put me in, coach. Like, put me in with the big dogs. And I was like, so he was like, fair, come down, we'll have a look at you, have a chat. So he came down, had a look at me, put me on the rowing machine, made me do 1,000 meters in the rowing machine. And I remember I was in this like yellow full length LA Laker basketball shorts. And like I had a thing for like basketball caps and sneakers at the time. So I was spending most of the money I earned in the year out there's about 40
American
caps.
swag.
Yeah, and big Nike high tops sitting in my back room at home. But then he was like, do that again. So I just did it again. He's like, okay, can you come down tomorrow? I was like, yeah. Wow. And then from there I just trained with the novices, the beginners on the water, and then trained with the senior team on the rowing machine and in the weights gym. And then just the two of them kind of started to merge together then. And then in the second year I went on, there was like a talent ID program thing that was set up through British Rowing and Irish Rowing had one. And got through on both of them, but just because of the travel across to the UK, then the Irish pathway kind of won out and just went down that way.
Do you think that you're a good rower because of the length of your arms as much as the strength and the mental attitude you have?
I think that was one of the things that made me good at the beginning, like the height. Obviously, your lever, you have your pivot, your fulcrum, and your load, and it works around to give you more force. But like, I used to show my grandmother photographs of me at sporting competitions. She always be like, there you are. I showed her one of me at my first rowing competition. She goes, which one are you? I was like, I'm like the 4th tallest there in the middle. Yeah. She'd be like, oh. And I was like, you don't know which one. You literally just pick the tallest person and point at him. But I was walking around regattas then like this afterwards. So height obviously is something to play in it, but you have to have a little bit of something as well.
I presented the British Rowing Awards one year, and when Stephen Redgrave and Matthew Pinsent and all the girls, and I was like this, looking up at them all. Even the girls were over 6 feet tall. Yeah. Huge. Yeah.
What's it like from an ego perspective, going from, I assume, being one of the tallest guys in the school, one of the tallest guys in uni, like being really strong, super good at what you do, to then like going in to that environment and being in the middle?
It's difficult because first of all, I try, and the word ego is like my arch nemesis, because through school with like hockey, and I had these little fluky exam results that were good, and people always I would have been, and I had a my mum's friend, but was my chemistry teacher. And whenever I left school, I had she was around our house one time, and I was like, her name was Miss Morrison. I was like, Miss Morrison. She was like, it's Helen. I was like, it's not.
It's definitely not Helen.
Always going to be.
It's I wouldn't even call her Helen if she was sitting here.
And I was like, what were you genuinely like? What was I like? And she was like, everyone kind of thought you were a bit arrogant. And I was like, ouch. But I'm not arrogant at all. And she's like, yeah, I know, but she's like, it comes across like that. And then I was like, right, so now over the next few years I have to try and not come across like that. And it's hard to be successful in things and not come across with that. So it's always something I've been like battling against for a long time, because see if I meet one more person from school or from earlier in life, and you actually get talking to them and they're like, oh, you're not kind of as bad as I thought you were going to be. And I'm like, well, why did you have such a bad perception of me in the first place? And they're like, oh, because you were always on the hockey team and you were always like a little and you're like, but it never did anything bad to you, so why did you have a negative impression?
They're like, I watched High School Musical and just thought you were a jock.
So that, like, the ego word is like a trigger for me, but your question was like, how do you check the ego when you're doing so well? And I think, then you go into an area where you're not the best. I think that not getting into medicine the first time round just clipped that ego for me big time, and it made me step back and be like, oh, like there's no way in here, this is a loss.
Yes.
And I think sport as well teaches you how to lose. So even though I had maybe lost a game or lost a match, we'd always been successful. We'd always got something out of the season, whether you lost the Irish title but you won the Ulster title, or you won the Irish title but then you lost the Europeans. But there was always something where I was like, I just didn't get this, and now I need to take another year to have another, this is me, this is a fail on my notebook. So already the notebook has a blot on it. So I was like, from there I always was like, look, I wasn't the best, I wasn't good enough to get in, and I struggled with that because I was like, other people in my year got into medicine and people got in with worse grades than me who just maybe picked better schools or interviewed better or had a better personal statement, and I was like, I've dropped the ball here. It's like, this is me not the best. So I think I had that position of not being the best, and then whenever you go to medical school they give you that talk in the first day, they're like, you were the best in your school but you're here with the best from every school. So that wasn't their exact voice, but that's my other person voice.
Well, I mean, it sounds like Helen, as hard as it was to hear at the time, did you a big favour.
Huge. Because you don't understand people. It's great. One of the best things you can have is an awareness.
Oh man, I read something the other day, and it was, I can't remember who said it, and it said, even though your mouth is only a couple of inches away from your nose, you still need somebody else to tell you you've got bad breath.
Oh.
And I was like, yo, that's so good. But you can only get that awareness from other people.
That's right.
But that I had that failure from there, and like I always, people were like, oh, like I at the beginning didn't tell anyone that I didn't get in the first time, because it was such a deep cut as well to take that from always being selected, always being the one, always. So then that was
so
an easy
when you
way.
got to meet the coach at Queen's and he put you in the boat, how did you feel about being out in the water? Because you hadn't actually done any. You'd done athletics and you'd done swimming and played squash, but how did you feel about getting into a boat and going out onto the river?
Hated it. Really, genuinely hated it. It was the lagging, it was windy, it was cold. We used to go up it right down to the waterfront from Cutter's Wharf and turn and come back up, and I used to see the Lyric Theatre and be like, oh my god, nearly over. Like, we're getting in soon. Because we used to go out in tracksuit bottoms and hoodies, and you'd be soaked and you'd be wet and you'd be cold.
She's done it.
It's great. It's on the winter days, because I started in like November, December. I was late in the year starting. That's the depths, like December, January, February is the depths of it. And I was just like, oh my god, let's just stick with it, because I was enjoying the strength side and I was enjoying the rowing machine side.
But in the boat on the river, were you on your own or were you with a group?
No, so at the beginning I was in a group of 8 other guys. So, well, me plus, there was a coxswain, so there was 9 of us in total. Yeah, so there was always 8 of us in the boat, which made it easier. I don't know if I would have how long I would have lasted if I was on my own the whole time.
So when did you meet Ronan?
I met Ronan in 2018, pretty much.
Not long ago.
Yeah, we stayed away from each other. We managed to.
He's your partner, isn't he?
He was at the beginning. I'm with another guy now called Darrell Lynch. The 2 of us are going to the European Championships in Slovenia in 3 weeks and a few days.
Oh, wow.
But Ronan has just come back. He took a year out to go and finish his degree in human nutrition. So he was working for Jameson doing, the chemical testing, and they've loads of food products they're bringing out. So not an advert for Jameson, but do you know what I mean? So he's doing that, and myself and Dara have been together. But we met at a trial, essentially. We kind of had always missed each other at different trials, because one I couldn't go to, one he couldn't go to, and there wasn't really. So everyone's heard of the 2 brothers who had the funny interviews, right?
Yes.
We all know them,
Yeah.
and they were kind of all Rowing Ireland were for so long, and they're lightweights. Since in 2008, there was 4 heavyweight men went to Beijing. Since then, there wasn't one heavyweight man training on the national team from 2008 to 2018. We won a medal in 2019. It was the first heavyweight medal won at the World Championships since Sean Dre in 1975 or something.
Oh gosh.
So there was no heavyweight.
What's heavyweight for a rower, like 90 kg or
anything that isn't? All the lightweights have to be 70 average kg, and they on the day of the race. Whereas anyone else who doesn't do that is heavyweight.
Oh wow!
But they're usually 90 plus ish. So there was no heavyweight program. We were trying to develop it for years, and we're trying to do different things for to try and build it together, and it just always seemed to just slip away at the last minute. Or we would have a few training sessions here and there. Boys would meet in Blessington outside Dublin, or we'd meet in Cork for a weekend, and then they'd be like, "Oh, we'll go to this race in Copenhagen," and then all of a sudden, "Oh, I actually can't go that weekend," or people would pull out and it would all get scrapped. So until there was a regime change when a new performance director came in, a guy from Italy called Antonio Mauro Giovanni. He came in and he brought this Australian guy called David McGowan, who was just this like maverick Australian push. But that's what that's kind of what we needed to get everything up and lifted and going. And I had just done my medical finals, had gone on a great skiing trip, never been skiing before in my life, and I loved every minute of it, in Val d'Isere with my housemate who loved skiing, and I was like, here, why have we not done this for years? This is incredible. I'm in bed by 8 and I'm up early skiing.
Love that.
And then he was like, would you come down for the trial? And I was like, I'm starting work in the end of July here. I was like, I can't. And he was like, come to the trial. I was like, right, I'll come to the last trial. And me and Ronan and I, we lined up and we just raced each other to the line, and there was 0.1 of a second in it, and then the next people were like 25 seconds back, and this was the trial. And then the Australian guy came up to us and goes, "So when can you 2 move down to Cork?" What? And then he was like, "Right, so tomorrow you're going to race the O'Donovan brothers and see how you go." And we were like, "All right, okay, fine." So we raced them.
Did you beat them?
We were beating them at the 1500 metre mark, and then there was a big rare gust coming out of nowhere. No, we were beating them, and then they came sprinted through us in the last couple of metres, and they won by less than a second. And then our coach is like, if you 2 had been together for more than just today, he's like, you're gonna take that. He's like, they beat you on experience. He's like, but you have so much potential. When will you move down? And then started I can't move down, I'm going to work. And then even Ronan was like, I'm not, he lived there, and he was like, I'm not coming out here every day. He's like, I have college and I have this. And so it took a lot of chatting and ironing all that out before we got everything going. But that's when we met in 2018, a couple of months before we raced together for the first time.
Mad. And at what point did the Olympics even remotely come onto your radar? I assume not even at that stage,
No, Not even, like, we raced the World Championships that year, and I had to go to NIMTA, which is the Northern Irish Medical and Dental Training Association, and say, hi, how are you? I'm supposed to be starting work in a few weeks. Can I take a few months off to go to the World Championships? And they were like, yeah, okay, no problem, just sign this form. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, yeah, but you have to finish within this amount from your degree, you have to do this amount, and it has to be in 4-month blocks, and it has to be here, and it has to be. And they were like, as long as you tick all those boxes by the time you get to the end of your foundation program, we're happy enough. And then I was like, okay, cool. So I took the time away, went to the World Championships, we came 8th. And then everyone was like, here, that's really good. And we were like, yeah, but we didn't win. They were like, oh, you're not supposed to win. And they were like, look, you've qualified for funding from the carding scheme for Sport Ireland. And they were like, you can move down to Cork now. And I was like, no, I'm starting work in Belfast City Hospital.
Why does everyone keep trying to get me to move to Cork?
It's like the 1st of December, I start work in the renal unit. I was like, I know I've already taken off time. This is too last minute, I can't take off time. They're like, right, we'll go to your work for your 4 months and then ask for more time away. So I was like, I'm done with this, Rowan. Thanks very much. That was great. Rowing for the country and all the best. And then while I was working away, I was in the gym on the row machine anyway. And then I was like, here, I'm doing the bloody training anyway. I'm doing the training anyway. I might as well give this a pop.
Anywhere else in the world, they'd have been lapping you up and taking you under their wings, wouldn't they?
I'm not sure. I think rowing seems to be a pretty hard sport in most countries. They seem to be fairly ruthless with it. But to be fair, the coach was ringing me all the time, but he was always like, okay, like have a few more days. I was like, I've quit. Would you stop ringing me? And he was like, look, the funding's there. It'll start from the 1st of April. We'll get going, whatever. And I was like, oh, fair enough. And then whenever we came back, we did a few races, and then we won a medal at one of the World Cups, and like all the big boys were there. And then we sort of looked at each other. We were like, here, we could probably go to the Olympics here. And then at that stage, that's where we pushed, and we were like, right, this is the goal. Go to the Olympics, qualify, and see how it goes.
Well, it's been worth it, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, there have been some great experiences there.
Have you been selected for Paris?
So we haven't qualified for Paris yet. The aim is to get the boat qualified, and then the boat goes, we don't go.
Oh.
So we qualify 2 seats, and then we have to see who gets to sit in those seats.
Oh, that's hard too.
So when COVID came, I went back to work here.
Sorry, I have no idea what you just said. I don't understand what you just said.
So whenever we qualify for the Olympics,
right.
So this year, myself and Dara more than likely will take our 2-man boat.
Yeah.
To Serbia, to Belgrade.
Yeah.
And if we race the World Championships and come in the top 11, that's us qualified for the Olympics.
Yeah.
But that's just those 2. The boat is going. Only the boat.
So then who decides to put whoever they want in the boat?
So then we have trials.
Right.
And whoever comes out.
Irish trials.
Yeah. Right. Internal trials.
That's kind of niche. Interesting.
Yeah. So whenever I came back to work for COVID, and then Dara and Ronan went together then in the double, and they won a bronze at the European Championships. Now it was a COVID Europeans, and loads of countries didn't show, but they were still racing some pretty fast crews, and it was a really good result. Like, it was a class result. And I remember watching the TV being like, come on, but not that far. No. And then I was like, here, they've done very well. I'm going to have to up the training here, and because this is, my seat's not guaranteed.
Wow.
No, there's 3 of you for 2 seats.
So there was 3 of us for 2 seats. So
but are there others as well? Are there others biting at the?
There are a few who come to the trials as well, but whenever I came back, it was pretty much myself, Ronan and Dara were out ahead. So the first trial, then we made it very obviously us 3. And then we had there was about 3 or 4 trials of just swap, race for a long time until we finally got it settled.
Very difficult time for you.
But you not know until about 2 or 3 months before the games.
Before the games?
Yeah.
That's logistically a nightmare.
For us, it wasn't too bad because myself and Ronan qualified the boat, and then myself and Ronan went.
Yeah.
So, Dara, even though it was very hard for him, he was probably like, I didn't qualify it. I was trying to steal a seat and I didn't get the seat stolen. But there were other boats, like the women's 4, where they had to go to last chance, so it was those 4 in the boat. They qualified it and then they raced it, but there was 6 girls trying to get in that boat for the qualification, and there was 2 girls who ended up going in the pair, who then ended up not getting an Olympic medal. Because and the chances, it was such slim margins that if they had made it in, they more than likely probably would have won the medal. Would have won the medal too.
Would they take the 3rd man in case one of you got injured during the preparation of the games?
So Dara was in Japan, in Fukuroi City with the Irish team until 2 days before we raced, and then he flew home.
Oh, bless.
So ironically, you kind of just bring him for the crack, because you're allowed a spare, but you're only allowed so many spares because the accreditations are so limited. So we only actually had 1 spare for the whole team, and it was a girl rower for the sweep boat, because you only get a spare for a boat of 4 or more. So he wasn't an official spare, but he travelled with us. So if I had got injured after the second race, which I did, he was gone. He was back in Ireland at that stage. So
what's inside your control, like on the run up to Paris? Like, what do you need to do to give yourself the best shot of
just consistently, this sounds ruthless, but just consistently beat everyone all the time.
And have you much competition between now and Paris?
There's not that many international competitions for rowing, but there's the Europeans, then we'll go to a World Cup in Switzerland, and then we have the World Champs, which we can qualify at, and then again next year there'll be a few more. There's a few smaller international regattas, like we'd won in Italy there 2 weeks ago. Myself and Dara actually raced in it. We got silver at that, and then there'll be a few of those next year, but it's very limited. You want to go to competitions where there's enough people showing up. Like you could go to Henley, but Henley's more of a spectacle.
Yeah,
it's more of a Pims, and it's great. Henley's great, but it's not. It's a long series of races, and you only get 1 race a day, against 1 crew. Whereas international racing is 6 people, bang, bang, bang. It's fast and it's ferocious, and you're not watching people having a great time on the lawn watching you. So it's.
But do you get to go to Paris to see the course and to work on it for a time?
We were supposed to go recently, but I think they changed it that whoever qualifies will go in September. Because we're not going to stay in the village. The regatta course, it's hard to fit a 2,000 metre lake in the middle of a city, so we'll be outside Paris. So I think we're going to go and check out the venue and the hotel and where we'll be staying. I think after in September. Although we were supposed to do that for Tokyo as well, and it didn't materialise. So I think everything's budget dependent. So we'll see how things go.
It's very exciting, though. I mean, the thought of being able to compete at the Olympics next year. Yeah. It stimulates me to want to be there again.
if I could get you in,
fancy being a spur rower.
I could get you a coxswain job. See the one who sits at the front and shouts.
I'm not a bit heavy.
That's all. You just get a few stronger boys in the boat.
I remember listening to James Cracknell, who was in the British Fours boat, and he had to have a lever on his foot that he steered, and in the final of one of the Olympics, I'm not sure which one it was, they were told that they had to go at 500 metres, that was the final spread, and he went too early, and of course they were spent before they got to the 500 metres mark, and they had to find that extra energy to lift themselves again. I think it must be very hard relying on somebody else in the boat to make those decisions for you. Do you have that, the two of you?
We kind of have a similar thing. Yeah, there's only 2 of us, so it's a lot more intimate. But Dara behind me will make the calls, and I'm the front guy, so I set the rhythm, and I kind of do what he tells me to do. Although sometimes I like to pipe up in the middle. But you do need that. You just need to trust whatever he says behind him. Like there was one race, Ronan turned around to me and he was like, "Look, we're going with 1,000 metres to go."
Yeah,
that's a long way. And he was like, "But we need to." And I was like, "Right, if you call it, I'll go." So you just have to trust that when they say you have to go together, because if one goes and the other one doesn't go, it's like lifting 200 kilos.
Yeah.
But if you both go together, it's like lifting 50.
Yeah.
So you have to trust that the other person. Like, we were racing recently, and Dara I could feel him, like his legs. I could feel the boat take off, and then I just screamed behind. I was like, I'm going with you. I feel you. And then I started going, and then he started getting slower. And then we managed to just get ahead and pip for the silver medal at the end. And then I looked around him and I was like, what happened there? And he's like, I thought that was the last 250, not the last 500. He's like, after 20 strokes, I seen 250 to go, and he's like, I realised I'd gone far too early. So he was wrecked. But the speed of the boat, because I have a little thing with the speed on it, and I was like, jeepers, we're going with this. He's away. He's feeling good. And I was like, let's go. And then all of a sudden I was like, no, it's getting sore.
Brilliant.
It's amazing to hear how different sports
it's fascinating,
deal with it.
But you just have to 100% trust whatever they say. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, the whole thing will go to pot.
So what's your relationship with the trust? What's the trust done for you over the years?
So I was actually, when I was looking this morning, and I was going to get you the T-shirt that I got the year that I first got supported by the Mary Peters Trust. I think it was 2015-2016 season. And I think John Armstrong, who was the talent ID coach, put the application in for me. And he was like, look, there's this great thing. He's like, it's perfect for you. He's like, it'll help you this year, whatever. We were planning, myself and another guy, we were trying to get to the World University Championships in Poland. And he was like, look, this will help you, because you had to cover all your own costs and the university would cover a bit. And he's like, look, this would be perfect for you. And I was like, amazing. And then I went up to the Crown Plaza Hotel, ironically, where I'm now plastered all over because I did their wedding brochure.
Oh.
Before it was the Crown Plaza, it was the Ramada,
I
think, at the time. And I went up and got it that evening, and I was like, I'm far too old to be here. Everyone's a lot younger than me. And I was like, yeah, but they've probably been doing their sport longer. And I went up, and I think it was myself, my mum and my dad, and we just got the thing. And then I was like, this is great. And then every year, I think for the next few years, then it just helped a little bit, because you'd be travelling to England for competitions, travelling down like every time you go to a trial in Cork, it's €200-300. So like to be honest, it was phenomenal at the beginning. You were, every wee bit helped to cover the cost of it, because then you were trying to work a wee bit in between the university costs to try and cover things. So like, sport's expensive, and it's always going to be expensive, but the problem is that it's only getting more and more competitive, and when it gets more and more competitive, it just makes it more and more expensive.
That's right.
So even to compete at an amateur level, there's a huge payout,
and a huge commitment to the parents and the rest of the family who make sacrifices on behalf of the one that has a talent.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, as we start to kind of wrap up here, what does what's your take on don't water dead plants?
Don't water dead plants. Do you want the full story, or do you want the well, I'll give you a version. So I think through university, through elite sport, there's a stage where you have to be selfish. There's no way of getting around it. You can't give all of yourself to everybody else and succeed at sport. It's not possible. So sporting, I always have this great dilemma when my coaches are like, oh, but this is amazing, this is the Olympics, why are you worried about going back to work? And I'm like, in work I help people, in sport I help me. You give back a little bit through inspiring, but you don't genuinely know how many people you've inspired. You might bring 2 people to sport in an entire year. You might start 5 new people rowing in an entire year, but how do you quantify it? But if I see 1,000 patients in a year, hopefully I've had a positive impact on the vast majority of that. So it's like, sport is so selfish, but to be selfish, you have to, certain relationships, certain friendships just fade away, and you can spend your whole life like people from school who you be calling up when they're home, and you're like, oh, here, do you want to go for a coffee? They're like, no, but do you want to go out tonight? I can't go out tonight. 3 in the morning. or here it's my like whatever, can you come out for my birthday, and you go out that night and you don't take a drink and you go home early at 1 and you wake up and you're wrecked the next morning, but you're training at 6 a.m. before going to lectures, and you're like, oh, there was a big sacrifice for them. And then you're like, oh, here, you know, I've got this event, do you want to come and watch? And they're like, nah, it doesn't suit.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so that,
so don't waste your time.
That phrase of don't water dead plants is, I have a select group of people who I would always communicate with. When I'm home, I fit them in, and I would consider them my living plants. They're my close knit friends who, if I said, here, I need you, they're on their way. Or if they said to me, I need you, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
Do you know, you would make the sacrifice for them. You would give that time and that energy to mature and nurture the relationship. But then there's so many of those relationships that you have, and they could potentially be great friends, and when you meet up by accident, it's great.
Sure.
But you have to learn when not to give out energy for something that's not going to grow.
Yeah.
So you have to, in the elite sport especially, you have to be ruthless in saying, I'm a jug full of water. This is how I always see myself. I'm a jug full of water, and in a day I have 10 litres in my jug. Now I can put out 1 litre to 10 different things, and that'll be fine. But if I give 5 litres to the first, I don't have enough for everything else. So what do? I either make my jug bigger, which is not always possible, and carry 20 litres with me, but that's a burden. Or cut the number of things you give it out to, or just be more, give a better quality, like put some plant food in it or whatever. You know, it's all part of the analogy that I'm trying to make, but it's essentially like try not to be selfish in yourself. You just have to prioritize things that are going to grow and things that mean to you. And it's kind of ruthless, because I was speaking to a friend of mine last night who I went to university with, and we lived together for a few years, and I haven't seen her for ages because of COVID and things, and she works in Manchester now as a GP. We were chatting away and she's like, oh, I'm going to this wedding. I don't really know anyone in the wedding, you know, these people are going, I haven't spoken to them in years, and these people are going, I haven't spoken to them in years. And I was like, to be honest, I wouldn't go to that wedding.
No.
And she was like, why? And I was like, I don't know, like it sounds like a hassle to you. It sounds like it's taking a lot of your energy and taking a lot of your focus and going to cost you a lot of money, and like, are you really going to enjoy it? So maybe you just need to say, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Send a nice gift, and that's it.
But one of your best friends is your dog, and I find it fascinating that most sports people that we interview have a dog, and Fern is very important to you.
Because the dog will never let you down.
No, that's right. They're best friend, and they're unconditional in their love. And I think a collie is so inspirational also, because they're full of energy.
Yeah, but I have a few close friends from uni that I would always meet up with, and genuinely, if I rang one of them today and said, look here, I'm home till Saturday, like, can you fit me in? He'd be like, when are you free?
Yeah.
You know, and the same would go for him, and those are the things you would give your time to. So you have to just be ruthless with your time. And don't water dead plants.
I love it. Actually, I really, really love that.
But it's more than just relationships. If you're trying to learn the guitar and you're really useless at it, but you're quite good at piano, sack the guitar. You know, it goes across everything.
It's good, mate. It's a life motto.
It goes across everything.
You've taught us a lot of lessons today. Brilliant. It's really good. Thank you so much for your time.
Final question. If you could go back in time let's go to like Philip when he's just found out that he didn't get into Bristol, and you had like a couple of minutes of that Philip's time, what sort of things would you say to him?
Sack Bristol, lad, you'll be alright. The fees are going up to $9,000 next year anyway, don't worry about it. See, we already knew the fees were going up to $9,000, so I was like, oh, if I want to go to England next year, it's going to cost me 30,000 more to go through uni. So then that's why I ended up going to Queen's. And to that guy, I don't know what you would say to your younger self, because you'd end up changing whatever happened next. You know, if you told them the wrong thing or the right thing, you know, you might cut out an experience or cut out a person or cut out something in the years afterwards.
Love it. Well, Philip, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for yours.
Thank you for the Mary Peters Trust and for the Coca-Cola Thank You Fund for making this episode possible. And Mark McKibben, thanks for working the cameras and the audio. Appreciate it, mate. Catch you soon. Bye-bye.
That was amazing.
That's a wrap.
That was amazing.